Basketball fans, it's that time of the year again. The NBA's back from opening tip-off to buzzer beaters. BetOnline has you covered with the best odds, biggest promotions, and live in-game betting on all your favorite teams. This season, every game matters. BetOnline knows that and has every stat, matchup breakdown, and live odds to bet on during the game. And it's not just the NBA. BetOnline has odds on everything from football, baseball playoffs, hockey, even political props. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet Online. The game starts here. All right. I'll stop grooving to the jams. We'll just get into a show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the big weekend preview edition of Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I'm your host, Dan Besbris. We're going to go through all 30 teams' next game chronologically. Friday, we'll start at the early game. We'll work our way through to each team's next basketball game so you can prepare yourself for what you're looking for and then what to do if the things that you're looking for do or do not happen. This is the gap bridge between today and Monday when we'll do a big weekend recap and tie it all together. We will have a show over the weekend, likely on a week 5 preview, but that's sort of, those preview shows are more like a one-off because they're very head-to-head focused. Some of it is weekly focused, some of it is streaming focused. This is part of the season-long thread, and so this one is the one we'll like to connect to early next week. I am Dan Besbris on Twitter. I hope you guys will find me over there because that's the place to hang in between shows. I do have a Blue Sky account as well. It's Old Man Squad. Someone else had Dan Besbris. I don't know how the hell that happened, but it did. Right now I'm posting some stuff there. Not everything. Threads I haven't fully figured out yet. Not the site threads, but like how to do an actual thread on Blue Sky quickly. So for those, you'll probably still have to watch a short or just navigate back over to Twitter. But anyway, it's Old Man Squad on Blue Sky, Dan Besbris on Twitter. Old Man Squad on Twitter is actually the network feed. That's got all of our shows, mine, and then all the other amazing hosts that are part of the Old Man Squad network. I don't want to make you guys wait any longer. We'll come back and do our next ad in a minute because that's enough at the opener. 2 minutes is enough. That's like, I want to try to set that as my max right now. So let's get into it. It's must-watch weekend for all 30 teams. Can we do 30 teams in 20 minutes or less? I think the answer to that is a resounding yes. And then there's the stuff you should do. Oh, like, rate, and subscribe. Please do that. A bunch of you just did it on Spotify in the last 24 hours. Mwah! You guys are amazing. I don't know where you keep coming from, out of the woodwork here, but hit those 5 stars, like, and subscribe, and then we can keep growing this little thing. Here's your team by team, starting with the Philadelphia 76ers. They're the first team to play on Friday evening. Paul George, Joel Embiid are both expected to be back for this ball game. So, you know, I mean, you're starting them. So I don't know that there's a whole lot to discuss there. Yes, we'd like to know roughly how many minutes Embiid is going to play, but ultimately I don't care because he's a start either way. Screamed too much in the opener there. Needed to get my water fix early. Jared McCain's been really fun. But in my estimation, just based on how much there is to do, he's not going to be an initiator with Paul George and Embiid around. At least not that much. There will be some stretches probably where he has to kind of fill in that regard. But like Kyle Lowry's going to be the guy that slowly brings it up and gets the ball into the post and whatever. So he'll get those sort of cheapy assists. And I think McCain will score, but I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot else. And then at some point, Tyrese Maxey's going to show back up again in a couple of weeks, and then the whole thing's going to kind of come off the rails. So if you want to play him, you can. Just know that you're probably only going to get like 2.5 categories out of him, and probably not enough to be a 9-cat force unless he shoots the doors off the building. Orlando, nothing really. Okay, maybe that's not entirely true. You know what? You guys get to watch me adjust this in real time again. I'm taking nothing away. Jonathan Isaac minutes. That's what we're adding in there on the fly because he cleared 20 in their last ball game. And if he does it again, I'm putting him on my roto bench. I need to see it twice. 1 time is not enough. 2 times, I'll put him on my roto bench. I wouldn't dare touch Jonathan Isaac in a head-to-head league with unlimited daily, or not moves, but unlimited daily leagues. That's a recipe for disaster. Detroit, is Jalen Duren a buy low, or is it not low enough? And this is a discussion in and of itself because Jalen Duren's ranked 144 right now in about 25 minutes per game. His field goal percent is amazing. He's at 82%. He's basically not shooting at all outside of putback dunks. He's also shooting free throws at 56%. So those numbers are going to kind of come towards one another. You would assume field goal comes down into the 60s. Free throw gets up into the 70s, I would hope. Turnovers are way too high for him right now at 2. That's too many for what he's doing out there. And then is it just going to, are the minutes going to trend up? So I'm inclined to say yes, he is a buy low, but I don't know what it's going to take to get him because people were drafting Duren in the 50s. That was always kind of a bad idea. He should have been going in the 70s or 80s. Can you get him for someone near 90? Because then I probably would do it. So that's the target for Jalen Duren right now. And then Malik Beasley, you kind of have to wait and find out if Jaden Ivey is in or out. If he's out, Malik Beasley is a guy you badly want to stream. If Ivey's in, I think Beasley's a guy you kind of want to stream. And the burger board will reflect that. Right now, Beasley's a 2-burger guy if both those dudes are out. I think if Ivey's back, he slides back to sort of like a half a burger. Some like a slightly positive coin flip. Just better than a coin flip. The Raptors. It's stream time in Canada, ladies and gentlemen. Davion Mitchell, Grady Dick, Ochai Agbaji, these guys should all be fine. And again, we'll get to the burger board later with some more information on those dudes. Miami Heat. Is Haywood Highsmith worth a look? He's had a lot of steals in 2 games with Jimmy Butler out, but he hasn't done much else. And so I'm inclined to say, nah. Indiana. There's not really much there. Burger board on Benedict Mathurin. And then Tyrese Halliburton, who had one colossal, beastly, here we go kind of ball game. And then came back out the next time and could not hit anything. And still shooting 39% from the field and 78% at the free throw line. These are numbers that we know are going to come up. And when they do, it's going to look a lot like the final month last year. And here's the thing. I got to stop on Halliburton for all of you guys because I did clown on him a little bit leading up to the start of the season. In Roto leagues, I wasn't that high on Halliburton. Head-to-head, I was pretty good with it because building on an assist base of a low-scoring guy is not that hard to do when you assume also that the percentages won't be that bad. But then a lot of people came out of the woodwork to be like, Halliburton wasn't the same after the hamstring injury last year. Halliburton wasn't the same after Pascal Siakam showed up. These things are half-truths. There is some truth to them. But during the final month last year, he was number 11. On 18 points, 9.5 assists, almost 2 steals, 0.8 blocks, almost 3 threes, 46-84 with a split. So the percentages weren't even all that great for him. But that was still good enough for number 11 during that stretch. And that's why leading up to the season, you guys probably remember, I said, I think Halliburton is going to be around the turn this year, somewhere between 10 and 15 or 16, not number 5 or number 6 or wherever he was getting drafted. That just wasn't in the cards. And that's largely the Siakam thing. I don't think it's the injury. And then you put on top of that this brutal shooting slump. When the slump sorts itself out, and it will, and the steals get back up where they need to be, and they probably will, you're talking about a guy who's going to be a second rounder basically at worst. So yeah, there's very much still a buy low on him. And just understanding what he was down the stretch last year is a pretty good idea of what he'll probably be this year. Not the injury stretch when he was playing 24 minutes a game just to qualify for all NBA. I'm talking about that really down the stretch last year. The last 15 games, he played 32 minutes a night. This year, he's at 35 minutes a night, so it could actually be even better than that. He will be fine. It's just kind of a bone-crushing start to the year. Brooklyn. Nick Claxton got ruled out for a week or more this morning, so do we bother with Dorian Finney-Smith? I'm seeing some let's take a look at Noah Clowney stuff out on the interwebs. I don't think I'm there yet with him. He's averaging 16.5 minutes per game. Dorian Finney, we've seen Ben Simmons rest all their half of their back-to-backs. We saw Claxton rest some of their back-to-backs, and he didn't even play in the first few games. Clowney hasn't cleared 21 minutes yet this year. He did have one good game mixed in there, but nah. Claxton or no Claxton, Clowney has very much not done enough. And then, no, this isn't enough for me to do anything with Ben Simmons. He's not playing enough minutes. Finney Smith is the only guy that saw enough the last time Claxton was out. You can look at the beginning of the year. First 4 games, Dorian Finney-Smith had pretty good numbers. And then it's trended a little bit down since then. Claxton's been back and slowly ramping up. Ben Simmons has been in and out of the lineup. And it's not so much the minutes. They haven't changed that much. They were a little higher the first 4 games, low 30s instead of high 20s. It was just playing some center, getting a couple of blocks where he then started getting none, getting 8 rebounds where he started getting 4 or 5 instead. Those little things, they change things a little bit when you take the big rebounder out of the mix. Is it enough? Zero burger, but I think he'll be okay. The Knicks, I got nothing. Nothing at all. Which is exactly, as you all may recall, what it felt like Ned Flanders was wearing when he went skiing. Stupid, sexy Flanders. The Chicago Bulls, Io signs of life, just in time for Lonzo Ball to probably come back. I think he got ruled out for the weekend, or he's doubtful. I forget what the exact nomenclature is on the latest update, but Lonzo's getting close on the wrist injury recovery. And then I would hope that he sort of picks up where he left off, which was around 18 to 20 minutes a game, slowly creeping his way into the 20s. And again, I don't know that we're going to get a Lonzo Ball that anywhere comes close to resembling the Lonzo we saw in whatever the hell the last season was he plays, 2021, 2022. But remember, he was a 3rd rounder in starters minutes that year. 13 points, 5.5 boards, 5 assists, 1.8 steals, 0.9 blocks, 3 3-pointers on bad percentages, mind you, which, again, I don't know how those are going to react to it. And that was on a team similar to the team he's on now, where it just had lots of other guys that were handling the basketball. But he's a dude who just makes teams better. What would it take for Lonzo to be startable in head-to-head? I don't think it's happening this year because he's going to get a lot of games off. He's not going to play their back-to-backs. I mean, there might be weeks you could kind of seek out, look at Chicago's schedule, find out when they have enough games that even with the back-to-back, it would be worth it. Like, get down the line. There might be a 3-gamer or a 4-gamer where he goes every other day. That would be the kind of, okay, now we can find a spot for him head-to-head. That would be January 6th. I think is the next time that happens for the Bulls. So, I mean, again, we're looking down the line a little bit. Roto's a little easier, or games cap formats in general are a little easier, because once he gets to basically 24, 25 minutes, he's got the prospect of being a top 100 guy. And I think he's going to get there at some point this year. Who's going to suffer? Io. Cavaliers. I think we've seen the start of the Karis LeVert cool down. It's coming. I would get the hell off that boat before it sinks, but you do you. Wizards. Alex Sarr has really cooled off after his raucous start from blockland, not so much like what he's actually doing from the field. That's been bad from the get-go. Still at 2.3 blocks for the season. Those bad percentages are very much sagging him to a point where using him in roto leagues is kind of a bad idea. Head-to-head, it's not a terrible idea right now, but he's just going to slowly trend up. And someone on Twitter was like, we saw it in Summer League. He just doesn't have it. Guys, please, Lord, do not make an overarching call on Alex Sarr based on like 2 Summer League games. This kid can play. He's a freak in size. He blocks a crap ton of shots. He's going to figure it out. He's not a 34% shooter from the field. That will trend up. And when it does, along with the minutes, he's going to be a pretty big value. You guys know me. I don't recommend sitting on young guys all that often. But when they can do other stuff that keeps them from being a total fantasy 9-cat disaster, that makes it workable. And you know what's coming with this dude. He's the future in Washington. That's all the draft capital. He's the future. Try to wait that one out. What's Kyle Kuzma's deal? You guys know I don't draft him anywhere because I hate that bad percentages, high turnovers stat set and kind of low defensive stats. You guys know me. I don't draft the guys that score, rebound, and assist and don't do other stuff. It's just not my way. I find it to be a harder way to try to win fantasy because you're competing with most of the public that is drafting those guys. Beat those other teams at the categories that they're ignoring for easy money. Kuzma's not easy money, and especially if he's trending down. Or is it just injury stuff and he's working his way back? I actually don't know. I don't know right now. I'll be honest with you guys when I don't know the answer to a question. I think hopefully that endears me to you and you're not just like, this idiot doesn't know. I don't want Kyle Kuzma. I can almost guarantee he's going to be better than he's been so far. But the question marks, the unknown about the whole thing does concern me. And then how strongly do we feel about Bub? I like Bub. He's fun. He had a big turnover game his last time around. There are some holes in his fantasy game, sort of Rajon Rondo-ish. I think he does belong on rosters, though. DeAndre Hunter, finally off the injured list for the Atlanta Hawks, or at least it's not an injury report, maybe is the proper way to describe it. And I don't know what the hell to expect because he played 2 games this year, averaged about 30 minutes a game in those, and was very good. 18 points, 6.5 boards, 2 assists, a steal on really good free throw numbers. Not great field goal, which actually probably better. 0 turnovers. I mean, that's obviously not going to hold. The numbers he put up so far equated to like a top 30 kind of valuation. That's not going to be what DeAndre Hunter is. But it sure feels like, with the way the Hawks are built right now, and no Bogey, who, by the way, got assigned to the Hawks G League team to start getting some practices under his belt, Hunter's going to have enough to do to be a fantasy-relevant basketball player. And he's done it before. Sometimes he goes on those 2-point shooting heaters, you guys remember? That was what vaulted him up. But he was always competing with too many guys for shots. And it's possible that when Bogdanovic comes back, there won't be enough for Hunter. But it still feels like, you move DeJounte Murray out of the way. The Hawks are relatively thin, by all accounts. They've got Reese O'Shea, who's coming along, but he's not going to be, they're not going to just shoehorn Reese O'Shea into 33 minutes every single ball game if they have other bodies that they can put out there and let Zachary learn against second units and learn in practice and that kind of stuff. There's a little bit of a misconception that guys have to play 35 minutes a game to learn the NBA. You don't. Chet Holmgren sat out an entire year with an injury, and he came in gangbusters. Dude seemed to learn the NBA just fine without playing a minute for a year. Guys learn a lot just by being in the environment. And so I don't think, Reese O'Shea is going to play, but I think the difference between him playing 26 minutes and 32 is sort of nominal, especially right now while other teams are going to be attacking him. You don't want to break the kid. Anyway, all that to say, I think Hunter's going to play if his body can handle it. It's not going to be about losing minutes to someone else. It's going to be about losing minutes to his own, morbidity. I don't know what the proper term is on that. Injury/illness. I think I used that right. Maybe not. So I picked him up in a couple of spots. I would find him a very difficult player to roster in head-to-head formats. I did not add him in any head-to-head leagues. I added him in 3 roto leagues. And now let's just see. This is a speculative ad, but the upside for him is higher than most of the crap dinkers you can pull off the waiver wire. Yeah, that's right. I said crap dinkers. Otherwise, on the Hawks, you got 3 centers fighting each other right now. Man, you guys know how much I would love for Larry Nance to just take over the center minutes on that team. I know it's not going to happen. I know he has the most movable contract of anybody on the Hawks. But man, I would love for it to happen because Larry Nance is a top 100 guy in 23 minutes a game. He's number 122 in 16 minutes right now with, mind you, an unsustainably high 70% shooting from the field and 2 3-pointers. But what if Capella goes down? Maybe it's not Okongwu time. Maybe it's Nance can make him dance time. A man can dream. Don't do anything with it. I'm going to get carried away here. The Lakers, D'Angelo Russell appears to have bottomed out, but it might be ugly for a little bit now. I think you could get D'Lo for a scrap heaper, and I would definitely do it, provided you can sit on him for a couple of weeks while whatever this is gets itself sorted out. Because he's been about as bad as you can be, and I'm trying to watch D'Lo because he's one of the biggest question marks in the NBA right now, along with, I would argue, someone like a Kuzma, who we just talked about. Try to see what it looks like, and watching has been bad. Rui Hachimura, I think, is going to get bumped back up my list a little bit. He runs very hot and cold, and he got hot again in their last ball game. He usually lasts for more than one day. For the Spurs, Devin Vassell's ramp up and then sort of the trickle down of that. It's a pretty relatively straightforward thing. You can kind of watch list Stephon Castle. You can watch list Julian Champagnie. I don't think you're going to have to worry about Champagnie for much longer. Denver Nuggets. Nikola Jokic got ruled out almost right before we went on air with this one. And, I mean, we'll see. Oh, by the way, Vince Williams is also some notable stuff. We'll get to Memphis in a minute. Jokic out. Denver doesn't really have a great option to replace him. And I know, like, in previous years, they'll just throw whoever in there. But this year, they need Jokic more than ever because Jamal Murray isn't himself. And Aaron Gordon is out. And so, well, I mean, what do we think? Do we think it's Zeke Naji? Maybe. Is it Vlatko time? Is it Dario Saric time? Is it DeAndre Jordan time? Is he still on the roster? Am I remembering that right? Yeah, I think he's still on the roster. I think DeAndre Jordan's on the roster. I don't know that any of those guys is going to push above the others. I pretty much just yelled everybody's name that was 6'8" or taller. Duran Holmes. Someone on the team named PJ Hall. I have to admit, I've never heard of this player. He's a rook. Oops. Get prepared, Dan. I would think that Dario Saric is the guy, but I could very well be wrong. I just, like... So Denver hasn't played in forever, which makes this a much tougher one to stomach, because the last game for the Nuggets was on Sunday, the 10th. Way the hell back. And you can look at these teams and you can see, okay, well, who's playing the backup minutes behind Jokic when he's off the floor? Jokic ain't off the floor very much, but it was Zeke Naji in that game. So is it Zeke time? I truly don't know. And I think we need to watch one. And this will be the one. And if Jokic only misses one ball game, fine. I don't mind missing one Zeke Naji explosion if that's what ends up happening in this game. But at least for next time, then we'll have it sort of in the Rolodex. I couldn't do it in 20 minutes, guys, by the way. I'm really sorry, guys. I don't talk that fast. The Pelicans, Trey, Ingram, Brandon Boston. I'll start those guys. I'm watching the rest of them. Misi is the closest of the rest. But then you've got guys like Javonte Green floating around. He's always had a really good fantasy game, but he never really gets the time to use it because I think reality-wise, he's not that good. Anyway, you can watch it. You can not watch it. It's a little bit of a dumpster fire with New Orleans right now. The Suns. Someone tweeted at me that Nurkic was back to being questionable again. I may have missed that one. He's a game-time call, it sounds like. Yeah, he is. That ankle is acting up again on him. It's part of a... this is the middle game of a 5-7 for Phoenix. I feel like he plays. I'm leaning towards yes on Nurk, and then probably we see him skip one of the Minnesota, Orlando, Sunday, Monday back-to-back, but I don't know for sure. So just feel it out, and if he's out, then you could drop Mason Plumlee back in the mix. And you know what? While we're talking about that, why don't we go ahead and just get Plumlee on the injury board just in case. Just in case. We may not need it. I don't think we're going to need it tonight. I'm weirdly optimistic, even though I'm not a big Nurk guy. The Thunder. Dort, keep playing him until the heater wears off, and then, we'll just sort of have a cursory glance at the Thunder box score. I don't think you need to watch this game to see if any of the other guys can get going with Chet out. What I'd love is a Hartenstein update from the Thunder. That would be juicy and delightful. I haven't had one of them forever. But oh man, like, I don't think you're going to be able to trade for him. I would give up a lot for Hartenstein right now. Because it's a hand injury, so, the conditioning is not going to take that long to get him ready. Like, we're talking probably just 2 or 3 games, and he'll be ramped up to pretty much starter's minutes. And starter Hartenstein, he could be a third rounder. They could have like a 2 to 3 month run as a third rounder. Give up a lot. Not like everything. You don't give up a third rounder for it, but if somebody's tired of waiting. Chris Dunn. I didn't even say the team. It's the Clippers. We're talking about the Clippers right now. Chris Dunn. Oof. I'm looking forward to 8 points, 7 assists, 1.5 steals, good percentages, and like 4 rebounds, and just making the other Clippers better. And anything beyond that, I would list as just fantastic gravy. But if he's playing full starters minutes, we may finally get like a Chris Dunn 2 steals a game kind of thing. It's not out of the question. I think he's almost a guaranteed top 100 guy if he stays in the starting lineup, and there is room beyond that. Rockets, is Jabari Smith Jr. cooked? I got into a little bit of an argument, and I should apologize because I was tired and I got a little bit snippy with someone who was, I mean, to be fair, the guy posting on the YouTube page, and I don't know if you're watching this one as well, was kind of being a dick about it, but I should have responded with a more level head. Jabari Smith Jr. was a player we talked about on one of our shows yesterday, and I said something to the effect of like, I don't have him anywhere. And maybe I wasn't clear enough in why that remark is important. The reason it's important is that there are times where I don't feel fully comfortable telling you guys what to do if you didn't listen to my first piece of advice. See if you can, like, it's a weird phenomenon for an analyst, and you don't really feel it until you do this for a while. And like when I first started doing podcasts and I first started doing fantasy basketball stuff on the analyst side instead of just playing a ton of leagues, it wasn't a thing because there are 8 of you that were listening to what I said. And now, you know, half a decade, a little more than that later, there's thousands of you that give a crap what I'm talking about, which, by the way, is super weird, but not the point of this discussion. And some of you are going to not do the thing I said. And that's fine because there's a lot of really good analysts out there and we disagree on a lot of things. So I can't just expect anyone who reads my tweets and listens to my pods to just do the exact things I'm saying. That would be unreasonable of me. So Jabari Smith Jr., we had him, you know, lower on buckets than where he was being drafted. He was going at like in the 80s. And I was like, yeah, I don't really want this guy until after 100. Basically, I had him down there with the guys that I would look at between 95 and 105 with, you know, Draymond Green and Chris Paul and Naz Reid. And so basically, he didn't fall that far. And so I didn't draft him anywhere. And right now, that looks like a good decision. But if you did, and you didn't follow that particular piece of advice, it puts me in a little bit of a weird spot. And this is not meant to elicit pity in any way. Quite the opposite. This is super fun. I love what I'm doing here. But it's really hard for me to say, oh, you did this thing that I didn't want you to do. Now what would I do? Well, you guys know. I'm not a big fan of him. But if you're looking at where I thought he should be going, I still think that he creeps up towards the edge of the top 100. I had him in that 100 range. So is it a buy low? Is it a drop? Like, what are we talking about here? Like D'Lo, he's probably in bottoming out territory. His minutes are trending down. His shooting's been down. His defensive stats are down. He's going to be better than he is right now. If you don't have him on your roster, you probably wait and see if somebody drops him. And if they do, I would probably pick him up and like be the guy who holds him for a few weeks next. He's not dropped almost anywhere, by the way. He's still 82% rostered, but it's starting to happen because his last 5-6 games have been 22 minutes, 24, 17, 26, 32. Couldn't shoot in that one, but at least he played more. And then 21 again because he's getting smacked around for minutes by Tari Eason and Amen Thompson. But this isn't who he is. He'll be better than this. He can't shoot right now. He's not getting the D stats. There's a lot of stuff there. So if you have him, against my wishes, you probably have to hold. But I do think it's important to give a little bit of that context with these types of players. It's much easier for me to say, oh, Freddie VanVleet, he's slumping. Easy hold. I had him as a top 25 per game guy. I mean, nothing I've seen so far has me thinking he's less than a top 40 yet, and yet there he is at like 75. Easy hold. Jabari Smith Jr. didn't really want him where he was getting drafted, so it's harder for me to say, oh, here's what you should do now. So grain of salt is basically the way I wanted that to be conveyed. You guys should know where my opinion is coming from. Everything I say has some built-in, I don't want to say bias, because everything that I do is very analytical, very mathematical. It's not biased for me to come up with my own opinion on facts that I'm reading, but you should know what my previous opinion was before doing something with a current one. Grizzlies sound like they might be getting some guys back. Marcus Smart came back in the last one. Desmond Bane practiced. Vince Williams practiced. I don't know how many minutes Vince Williams is going to play. By the way, DeMar DeRozan just missed shoot-around for the Kings. If you're expecting him to go, he's probably not gonna. I would think that Bane gets dropped back into pretty significant minutes. Well, no. I don't know. I think I would start Bane. I definitely wouldn't start Vince Williams, but put him on your watch list, and we should probably have him here. Uh-oh, I lost my cursor. Oh, no. Where's my mouse cursor? Let's change this streamer's one to What of Vince Williams, friends? There we go. You guys enjoy when I change this thing in real time, or do you think it's dumb? I don't know. It's a lot of work, so whatever. So keep an eye on that situation. He may end up being... It would be a shorter-term thing because as Bane works his way back and then Ja works his way back, he's going to get pushed out, but there might be a little bit of an injury thing going on. The Warriors. Okay, so this is another situation. No DeAnthony Melton for probably 6 weeks, sprained ACL, and I cry every time I sign off the podcast. Buddy Hield is going to be a big winner in this because he was getting shoved out by Melton. And then people were like, what about Pods? Okay, let's get back to the same discussion we just had on Jabari Smith Jr. I was not a Brandon Podziemski guy coming into this year. I had him pulled all the way down to the Flyers territory. I don't think he belonged any higher than that, and he's been bad so far. And Melton already missed a few games earlier in the year, and Podziemski wasn't good in those. So I'm inclined to believe that he's still not going to be very good. Wolves. Dante and Conley watch. That's where I'm at with that one. And I know you guys are like, Dan, just move on. I can't, because as much as top 100 doesn't feel like a worthwhile play, if Conley gets to like 95 and if DiVincenzo gets to like 103, that plays a lot better than most of the guys floating around out there. We just forget like how many rest of season guys pop up from week to week. This was a really weird week that there were a few. Week 1, there's usually a few. Christian Brown, Bilal Coulibaly, forgetting someone else. Someone's going to say Dyson Daniels, but we drafted him everywhere. And then there's usually like a number of weeks where it's just injury pickups. And then all of a sudden, someone like a Chris Dunn floats in or a DeAnthony Melton floats in and then gets hurt. Those things don't happen very often. Big lineup change type stuff. There's lots of injury guys that are going to be floating on and off your roster. And some of them might stink, and some of them might put up a good game here and there. But it's really rare to find rest of season guys that you don't have to think about. And it's still, I would say, better than possible, nay, even probable, that these guys claw back towards the edge of the top 100, especially Conley, because he's like a few made three-pointers away from being there already. And I do think he's going to have to play more because the Wolves look really bad when Conley's not playing well or when he's not on the floor. Same thing as last year. They need him more than ever. Which may be asking too much of an old goat, but at some point he's going to probably have to do it. For the Kings, no DeMar, probably. He's doubtful. I'm going to assume he's out. No Malik Monk. So Kevin Huerter, we'll get to the burger board in a minute. So I ask you this, friends. Will Keon Ellis do anything? Doesn't look like it right now. Bucks, do we dare try Delon Wright? We'll talk about that on the burger board, but it sounds like Dame, Rollins, Green, and Portis might all be out. And then what about Gary Trent Jr.? Is he on my burger board? Did I throw him in there already? Yeah, he's in there. 0 burger play. Hornets, can Musa Diabate grab 10 boards again? And more importantly, do I care? I don't really. Maybe I'm being a jerk here, but and then Grant Williams, I do have him on a couple of roto teams where I have some centers out, but that's about as far as I'm going with him. He's relatively safe on the head-to-head side, I suppose. What's the Hornets' schedule look like right now? They have a good schedule coming up? I can't memorize all these things, guys. It's too much. Oh, they do have a weekend back-to-back, Saturday, Sunday. That's not bad. All right, well, do what you will. Celtics, Peyton Pritchard, man, just keep rolling. And Drew Holiday finally got defensive stats. We talked about him a bunch on yesterday's show. He was a very, very easy hold because as soon as defensive stats show up, he bumps up to like number 85. He's on his way. Mavericks, there's a lot of stuff to address internally because they look like a team that has a finals run hangover. But from a fantasy standpoint, I'm not going to pick up Najee Marshall. I don't care that he gets minutes every once in a while. And I'd love to know what the hell's going on with PJ Washington. That's probably the thing I'm most curious about with Dallas. But we haven't heard anything. For the Jazz, we want to know what's up with Walker Kessler. Let's get him back in there soon, please. And thank you. And then, of course, you got Jordan Clarkson on the play him while he's hot situation, which worked out again. But when he gets cold, look the hell out. And for the Blazers, let's get a little clarity on the DeAndre Ayton injury. Because as clarity goes, I don't feel like I have much. It's a finger sprain. A lot of guys will just play through that stuff. We've seen Domantas Sabonis play through broken hands and whatnot. But the Blazers are in no position to try to push Ayton. And so if he has to miss more time in this god-awful scheduling run the Blazers are in, one game over 6 days, well, then you've got Klingon and Robert Williams to think about. But you can't really do anything about it if you're watching this show on Friday because they don't play again until Sunday. And then they're off for another couple of days. Feh and bleh. And so on and so forth. Let's go to, I was going to say the mall. That's a How I Met Your Mother reference. Let's go to the burger board. Let's see how fast I can get this shared. Dano's trying to do it in real time and sucking at it. There we go. There's the injury board. I haven't highlighted any names yet because I want you guys to be able to use this pretty much any time all weekend long. This is one of those moments, friends, where it might behoove you to either watch the show on YouTube or just navigate into the attached Google Sheet. It's in the show description. I don't remember exactly what it says. It says something like, oh, here's a Google Sheet that has streaming grids and rank movements and injury boards and all that stuff. And you can just click into it. It's yours. It's on the house. Everything is right now. Fully on the house. But here are your names to keep an eye on. Scottie Pippen Jr. with Ja out. He probably does less now with Bane and Vince Williams coming back, so keep one eye on that. Peyton Watson with no Aaron Gordon. And So I'm actually a little bit worried about the Nuggets streamers with no Nikola Jokic because guys like Christian Brown, who's not a streamer, and Watson and whoever, these guys rely on Jokic to get them open. I don't know, man. I might sit a lot of the Nuggets. They're just not the same team without Jokic out there. Brandon Boston Jr., he's a confident one, as is Grady Dick. Robert Williams is a pretty confident one if DeAndre Ayton is out. And then Malik Beasley, if both, as we mentioned, Ivey and Tim Hardaway Jr. are out. Otherwise, you move him down. Still stream him, just not as confidently. Medium confidence guy, Goga Bitadze in Orlando. He's been good with no Wendell Carter Jr. Royce O'Neal for the Suns with Kevin Durant out. Benedict Mathurin might even deserve to be moved up to even more confidence. He's been great with no Aaron Nesmith. Kevin Huerter should have a pretty good game with no Monk and no DeMar. Davion Mitchell should have an okay game with no Emmanuel Quickly. Jared McCain is a maybe. He's a name that might be removed from this list because Paul George and Embiid are back, but it does seem like he's getting a bunch of shots, and so that would be maybe a zero burger play if it's only Maxey that's out, and that's the way that things are trending right now. Ochai Agbaji, I gave him 1 burger, but I could be convinced to downgrade him to like 0.75 burgers. Someone took a few bites out of his hamburger. That's with all the guys out in Toronto. And then the guys that I don't have a ton of confidence in, but I'm at least looking at, Grant Williams, 2 centers out in Charlotte. Zachary Risache with Hunter back. I might just take him off this list, but we can leave him temporarily because Bogey's still out. Bub Carrington with Brogdon on the shelf. Rui Hachimura. Probably I move him up a little bit. He's like a high confidence zero burger guy. I don't know. Maybe I should move him into the 1 burger zone just to convey that I do have some confidence in him. There we go. Santi Aldama might end up coming off this list if Desmond Bane ends up playing. Donovan Klingon, again, we need Ayton to be out. Gershon Yabusele, he's almost definitely coming off this list. Drummond probably out, but Embiid back. So you know what? Screw that. I'm going to take him off this board. I think that's confusing for everybody that's watching this later on in the day. Gary Trent Jr. and Delon Wright, because the Bucks look like they're going to be missing 4 guys this weekend. Dorian Finney-Smith recently added to the board with Nick Claxton ruled out for a week or more. And Mason Plumlee on the board if Yusuf Nurkic misses this game for Phoenix. There might be more. I mean, obviously, we're just going to keep a close watch on everything going on across the interwebs. Lots of guys are into and out of injury reports. Karl Anthony Towns is downgraded to questionable. Evan Mobley's questionable. Actually, Rui Hachimura, who we just talked about, is questionable. Not that anybody is left to fill in there. And Jared Allen got bumped up to probable, so that's a pretty good one. At least it sounds like Cavaliers, we don't have to worry too much there. And that, whoo boy, is your mega weekend preview. I thought we could do it in half an hour. I failed. If you want to see all that stuff that I just had flashing up on the screen, go to the Google Sheet. In the meantime, find me on social, at Dan Vespers on Twitter, at Old Man Squad on the new Blue Sky. Old Man Squad on Twitter is the network feed. You should follow that too. Old Man Squad Fantasy over on Instagram. And please, before you roll into your weekend, Danless, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and drop a 5-star review, especially Apple listeners. I know it's a pain in the butt, but I really need your help on that one. Spotify, you guys are great. You guys are doing the yeoman's work so far. I'm going to take a break from talking. This was me trying to go fast. Screwed that up something fierce. Have a great Friday, everybody. Good luck this weekend. I'll talk to you with a Week 5 preview. That'll probably drop sometime late Sunday. And then we'll roll on into another week. Love you guys. I'm Dan. I'm out.